Do you believe that a dog can wait for 4 years just to see the person he loves again? 4 seasons of rain and sunshine, thousands of lonely days. But he never left, never gave up hope. In a small town, a dog was sitting on the side of the road, every day, every hour, every minute, watching the cars passing by. No one knew who he was waiting for. No one understood why he refused to leave. But one day, a journalist accidentally passed by and discovered a shocking truth, a secret that could make the whole world cry. After all these years, will he still remember the person he loved the most? Before we continue, please comment and tell us where in the world you are watching this video from. And if you believe in touching stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel now, because tomorrow there will be a special story for you. Have you ever waited for something in vain? Someone? A memory that can't be returned? A promise that was never kept? On the quiet road in the small town of Aspen Ridge, Colorado, there is a lone figure who always appears at the old bus stop. A golden retriever with faded fur, deep, soulful eyes, and a silence that makes anyone who sees him speechless. Who is he waiting for? The locals have become so familiar with that image that they can't remember the last time Max wasn't sitting there. They call him the Watcher. They love him, but they also fear him. Because Max's waiting is not normal. Colorado summers are not as gentle as people think. It scorches the ground and heats every stone. And the bus stop where Max sits is like a giant furnace. The sun beat down on his back, the heat rising from the road, but Max did not leave. He just looked into the distance, watching the cars pass by, one by one, hoping for something. In winter, the blizzard froze the town. The branches were heavy with snow. The wind howled, whipping the cold flesh like knives. People huddled in their houses by the warm fire, but Max still sat there. Snow covered his back, ice beads clung to his eyelashes, and his legs stiffened with cold. But he did not give up. Some people tried to help him. "Hey, little girl, come in here with me. It's cold out here. Hey, kid, I have some good bones. Do you want them? Max, come in here. You can't sit here forever." But nothing could convince him. Whenever someone touched him, he just gently backed away. No barking, no growling, no resistance, just plain refusal. Grace, the owner of the restaurant near the bus stop, had been watching Max since day one. She saw something special in his eyes. "He's not a stray dog," she said. "He's waiting for someone." But who? The townspeople began to accept Max as part of their lives. Every day, at dawn, Max would walk along the road for a short distance, as if checking to see if the person he was waiting for would return. He never went more than 500 meters away. He never left the bus stop's site, and every time a blue car passed by, Max would jump up. His ears pricked up, his eyes flashed with hope. But when the car passed without stopping, he lowered his head and returned to his original spot. Repeat, day after day, month after month, year after year. Do you understand? An undying loyalty, an unconditional love, a waiting that no one knows will ever end. If you are still listening to this story, it means you have a seed of love in your heart. You understand that true love is undemanding, unyielding, and sometimes it is a promise, even if no one remembers that they ever made it. One night, there was a storm. Thunder cracked the sky. Rain poured down as if to wipe everything away. The wind tossed the chairs on Grace's porch. Water rushed down the side of the road. Grace couldn't sleep. She looked out the window, and her heart sank. Max was still there. He was shaking, but not from fear. He was just so tired. 4 years. He waited 4 years. 4 years of not knowing what he was waiting for. 4 years of not knowing if the thing he was waiting for would come back. 4 years of not knowing if he could wait again tomorrow. Grace couldn't take it anymore. She put on her thickest raincoat, ran outside, and knelt before Max. "Max, please, come inside with me." The rain poured down. The wind howled. Max looked at her for a long time. He looked up at the sky, as if asking something. And then he lowered his head. He didn't go inside. He just sat there. And she realized something. He would never leave until the person he was waiting for came back. If you're still here, still listening, you've probably experienced some kind of waiting in your life. Someone you loved but never came back. A dream you lost. A promise someone forgot. Do you believe that there are things worth waiting for, even when the whole world tells you to give up? If you believe that, leave a like. Not for us, for Max. That true love still exists in this world. Because maybe the miracle hasn't happened yet, but one day it will. Max waited for 4 years, but he never stopped hoping. And you know what? Just one more day. Everything will change. Have you ever felt like a story didn't end the way it was supposed to? Have you ever looked at something and known for certain that it was unfinished? That somewhere in the world, someone was waiting for a miracle? Max wasn't a stray dog. He didn't stumble into this town by accident. He wasn't a homeless soul, wandering. He had a family, and he had never forgotten them. Logan Hayes hadn't planned to stop at Aspen Ridge that day. He was on his way to Utah to interview a witness for an investigative story. But sometimes the greatest stories don't come to you by plan. They come on their own accord, as if by design. When Logan first saw Max, something inside him clicked. A familiar feeling. Not because he'd seen Max before, but because he recognized that look. The eyes of someone who has lost everything and still hasn't given up. Logan had seen that look before. In stories of survivors. People who had lost their families, their homes, their worlds, and yet they kept going. And now, he saw it in the eyes of a dog. Why did a dog wait 4 years? Why didn't he leave? Why did he believe that someone would come back when the whole world told him to forget? Do you think love can last forever? If you believe that, keep reading, because this story isn't over. Logan walked into Grace's little diner, ordered a cup of black coffee, and looked out the window, where Max was still sitting, motionless as a statue of loyalty. He turned to Grace. "How long has he been here?" Grace sighed. 4 years. 2 simple words, but they carried a weight that Logan felt immediately. 4 years? And no one knows where he came from? No. Grace shook her head. No one knows who abandoned him. No one could have taken him. He chose to be here, and I think he's waiting for someone. Waiting for someone. A simple sentence, but it kept gnawing at Logan's mind. He'd chased too many strange stories, but none like this. Max couldn't have just appeared here. He had to have a past, and if he had a past, there was someone out there who remembered him. That night, as the town slept, Logan opened his laptop. He began to search. The disappearances involved dogs in the area, car accidents, lost pet postings, hundreds of results. But nothing matched Max. Logan scanned the pages and he photos. Each dog had a story. Some were found, some never returned. And then, a small line that stopped him. Family lost golden retriever in fatal crash on Highway 67. owner hoping for a miracle. Logan felt his heart pounding. He clicked on the post. Date posted, 4 years ago. Dog name, Bailey. Family name, Sullivan. Logan stared at the attached photo. It was Max. There was no mistaking it. Those eyes, that posture. Bailey had a name. He had a home. He was not a stray. You are not the watcher. You are part of a family, and they lost you. Logan leaned back in his chair, trying to take a deep breath. He had read thousands of stories about abandoned animals, but this was not a story about abandonment. This was a story about a love that was never lost. Bailey had not forgotten his family, and he was still waiting for them to come back. But did they remember him? Did they believe he was still alive? Logan looked out the window. Max, or rather Bailey, was still there, waiting. Not knowing that, at that moment, a storm was coming. Not a storm of the sky and earth, but a storm of truth, of memory, and of a miracle that would change everything. You had followed this far. That proved you were a person with a loving heart. You know that love is not something that can be measured in time. 4 years. Bailey didn't give up. Will his family give up on him? Do you believe that things that were lost can be brought back? If you still believe that, leave a like. Not for me, for Bailey. Because right now, we are standing on the edge of a miracle. This story is not over, but you don't want to miss what's coming next. Do you believe in miracles? Not the kind of miracles that only happen in fairy tales, but the miracles that come from love, from patience, from the invisible strings that connect us, even when the world tells us to give up. That night, Logan Hayes did not sleep. He sat in front of his laptop, his hands shaking as he typed each word. Max's story, or rather Bailey's, was more than just a lost dog. It was a story of a love that was never lost. And Logan knew that if there was ever a chance to bring Bailey a miracle, it was now. Logan picked up his camera and stepped out into the cold night air. Max, or rather Bailey, was still sitting there, his eyes on the road. A dog, a road, an unfulfilled promise. He raised his camera and took a picture. One photo, then two. A clear picture of waiting eyes, of loyalty that never fades over time. Then he opened his laptop and uploaded the photo to social media. Under the photo, he wrote, 4 years, a promise unfulfilled, a dog that never gave up. Who knows who he is? Who does he belong to? Help me find out. And he pressed publish. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. 30 minutes passed. A few likes. A few encouraging comments. But then, an hour later, the unbelievable started to happen. Logan's post exploded. The shares started to skyrocket. 100, 500, 1,000, and then 10,000. Thousands of people were moved by Bailey's story. They didn't just see a dog waiting. They saw themselves in it. Who among us hasn't waited for someone? Who among us hasn't kept a promise in our hearts, knowing it might never be fulfilled? 4 years. Over 1,400 days. Bailey never stopped believing. And now, the whole world is starting to believe in him too. Do you believe in the power of love? If so, please share this story, because there might be someone out there waiting for a miracle to happen. Logan couldn't take his eyes off the screen. Hundreds of comments poured in. People were moved. They praised Bailey's loyalty. They told their own stories about people they had lost, about dogs they loved but couldn't find. And then, one comment changed everything. "Oh my God, that's our Bailey. I can't believe he's still alive." Logan paused. He stared at the commenter's name, Ryan Sullivan. Without hesitation, he clicked on the boy's account, and what he saw took his breath away. A series of old photos. A boy, no older than 4, holding a golden retriever, eyes full of love. Another photo. A boy and a dog running in the yard, sunlight streaming through the boy's hair and the dog's soft fur. It was Bailey. There was no mistaking it. Ryan Sullivan had found him. Logan quickly texted Ryan. The boy replied almost immediately. Please, please, are you sure? Are you sure it's Bailey? Is he still alive? My whole family has cried for years about losing him. Logan took a deep breath. Yes, Ryan, I'm sure. Bailey is still here. He never left. Without hesitation, the Sullivans set off that night. From Arizona to Colorado, a journey of more than 13 hours, they didn't dare sleep. Because they were afraid that if they delayed even a little, the miracle would disappear. Now, try to put yourself in Ryan's shoes. You once had a best friend, and then one day, he disappeared. You hoped, you cried, you prayed, but as the years passed, you were forced to accept that some things would never come back. And then, one day, the miracle happened. He was still there. He never forgot you. He waited for you for 4 years. How would you feel? Share this story with those you love, because who knows, maybe one day, they will also find something they thought they had lost forever. Bailey doesn't know that his world is about to change forever. He doesn't know that tomorrow morning, the car he's been waiting for 4 years will stop. He doesn't know that, for the first time in thousands of days, he will hear the voice he loved most in the world. This story isn't over yet, but now you have to ask yourself, will Bailey still recognize them? After 4 years, can love overcome time? Keep watching, because what's about to happen will make your heart flutter like never before. Have you ever waited for something so long that you weren't sure if it was real? That when the moment came, you didn't know if you were awake or dreaming? 4 years, over 1,400 days. Bailey had been sitting here, waiting. He didn't know if the wait would ever end, but he didn't leave, because there were loves that time didn't fade away. And now, he stood at the border between dreams and reality. The dawn was beginning to shine over the dew-covered roofs of Aspen Ridge. A light breeze blew, carrying with it the smell of wet grass and cold earth. Bailey sat there, as he always did. But this morning wasn't like any other, because for the first time in 4 years, that blue car was back. The car door opened. A young man stepped down, his legs shaking with tension, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his chest. Ryan Sullivan. Today he was no longer the 13-year-old boy playing with his dog in the yard. He was an adult. But his eyes were still the same. Hope, excitement, and fear. Ryan knew the most important question was about to be answered. After 4 years, would Bailey still remember him? Ryan took a deep breath. He stepped forward, only a few feet from Bailey. The whole town seemed to hold its breath. Bailey didn't run right away. He hesitated. He looked at the young man in front of him, a stranger he had never seen before. But then, something very familiar drifted through the air. The scent, the voice. Did he know this person before? Ryan felt it. He called out his old friend's name, his voice trembling with emotion. Bailey, it's me. It's Ryan. And at that moment, time seemed to stop. Bailey paused. He stared at Ryan. His ears perked up. His eyes sparkled like tiny sparks. For a moment, no one knew what would happen. Was 4 years too long? Did Bailey remember? Could love overcome time? And then, like a flash of lightning, Bailey rushed towards Ryan. He didn't hesitate anymore. He knew. He remembered. The bark rang out with emotion, not the bark of a strange dog, but the call of a friend who had found his beloved. Bailey rushed forward with all the strength he had. Ryan knelt, arms wide open, and the next second, Bailey jumped into his arms, wrapped around him, pressing himself against Ryan with all his might, as if he wanted to make sure this wasn't a dream. Ryan hugged Bailey tightly, burying his face in his soft fur, tears streaming down his face. The entire Sullivan family burst into tears. Bailey let out a small whimper, as if he were crying too. The townspeople, who had watched Bailey wait for the past 4 years, couldn't hold back their tears. Bailey licked Ryan's face repeatedly, as if to make sure this wasn't an illusion. 4 years. He had waited. He had thought that maybe the person he loved had forgotten him. But no. Ryan had never forgotten him. The Sullivan family had never forgotten him. They had come back, just like they had promised. He came home. Have you ever seen a love like this? A love that doesn't fade no matter how many years pass. A love that doesn't need words, doesn't need proof, just faith. Bailey waited for 4 years. Ryan cried for 4 years, thinking he had lost him forever. But today, at this very moment, they were together again. Do you believe that true love can overcome time? If you believe in it, leave a comment. Tell me, have you ever waited for someone? Have you ever loved someone so much that no matter how much time has passed, you have never forgotten? And if you are still waiting, maybe one day your miracle will come. Bailey has found his family again, but can he feel like he is home? 4 years on the streets have changed him. Will Bailey ever be able to adjust to family life again? Will he still feel at home? And will he ever lose faith again? This story isn't over yet, but if you've made it this far, it means you're a very loving person. You understand that love isn't something that can be measured by time. You understand that a promise, even if forgotten by the whole world, will be kept by hearts that never give up. Share your story in the comments because someone might need to hear it right now. Do you believe that sometimes returning home doesn't mean you found a home? For a human, a dog, or any creature on this earth, the hardest thing is not finding the way back, but learning to believe that it's still home. Bailey has returned home, but his heart is still lost. If you're still here following this story, it means you're someone who always wants this world to be full of love. And I believe, somewhere in your heart, there's also a Bailey of your own, something that was once lost, and now you don't know how to trust again. So keep following, because Bailey's real journey has just begun. Ryan once thought that as long as Bailey returned, everything would naturally be fine like before. He imagined the moment Bailey would throw himself into his arms, sleep at the foot of the bed, and run around the yard as if nothing had happened. But the reality wasn't that simple. Bailey didn't sleep in the house. Even though Ryan had prepared a soft mattress, a small quiet corner just for him, every time it got dark, Bailey would just curl up on the porch, looking out at the street. He didn't bark. He didn't show any anxiety. He just couldn't go inside. 4 years of living alone on the streets had made him accustomed to it. The walls, the roof, the closed doors. Everything was unfamiliar. Bailey didn't know what to do. Did he belong here? Have you ever felt like that? Loved by someone, but still afraid? Wanting to trust, but the past has left scars that keep you from moving forward? Bailey was home. But he didn't dare believe that he wouldn't be abandoned again. But this time, Ryan wouldn't let that happen. He didn't push Bailey to change right away. He didn't drag him inside, didn't force him to sleep in a certain spot. Instead, Ryan did something simple, but powerful. He sat next to Bailey. Every night, when Bailey lay on the porch, Ryan would bring a small chair out there. He sat down, saying nothing. He didn't try to touch Bailey. He didn't try to pull him closer. He just sat there. There was love that didn't need words. There was healing that didn't come from big things, but from the smallest moments. Every night, Bailey found Ryan sitting there. Every night, he knew he wasn't alone. And then, one day, Bailey moved a little closer to Ryan. Not much, but enough for Ryan to notice. He smiled, but did nothing else. Because sometimes, the most important thing is not to pull someone closer, but to give them time to come forward. Days passed. Bailey began to change. He was no longer so wary of people touching him. He started wagging his tail when he heard Ryan calling. He no longer paused for too long when he crossed the threshold into the house. But there was one thing that still hadn't happened. Bailey had never slept in the house. Until one night, it was a quiet night. The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of wildflowers from the garden. Ryan sat on the bed, looking out the window, where Bailey was, as usual, lying on the porch. But then, he heard soft footsteps. Ryan held his breath. Bailey walked into the house, without hesitation, without fear. He didn't stop at the door anymore. He walked straight to Ryan, and then he jumped into bed next to him. Ryan didn't dare move. He was afraid that if he did anything, Bailey would change his mind. But Bailey didn't leave. He lay down, curled up next to Ryan. For the first time in 4 years, Bailey slept deeply, without worry, without fear, because he knew he was truly home. This story isn't just about a dog. It's about love, about faith, about the patience to give someone time to learn to love again. If you've made it this far, it means you're someone who wants the world to be filled with love. You understand that some wounds take time to heal. You understand that sometimes love isn't about forcing someone to change. It's about being there for them until they're brave enough to move on. Have you ever waited for someone like Ryan to wait for Bailey? Have you ever wanted to love someone but were afraid they'd leave? And remember, all love can be healed if we're patient enough. Bailey is home. But perhaps more importantly, he's found himself again. Thank you for being here and listening to this story until the end. It proves that there is always a place in your heart for love, loyalty, and the small but wonderful miracles of life. Bailey's story is not only a journey of a dog looking for his family, but also a testament to the power of patience, faith, and unconditional love. In this world, there are things worth waiting for. There is love that never fades, even after many years. And most importantly, no matter how long you have been lost, there is always a place called home waiting for you to return. If this story has touched your heart, please give it a like to spread this warmth to more people. Please share to remind someone that true love always exists. And we want to know, how many points would you rate this story from 0 to 10? Leave your number in the comments. There are many more great stories waiting for you ahead. Stories that can change the way you look at life, love, and the most meaningful things on this journey. Stay tuned for the next video, because who knows, that story might be what your heart is waiting for.